When it comes to investing your money, there are lots of opinions of the best way to do it. Some people say you should pay off your debt first, while others say you should max out your 401k or IRA. So what is the optimal order for investing if you want to build wealth in 2025? In this video, I'll share with you the 10 steps that I believe are the best order for investing your money. Hi, my name is Brian Feraldi. I'm a financial educator with 20 years of investing experience. So optimal investing step number 1 is to make sure you have a starter emergency fund in place. Did you know that only 39% of Americans have enough savings to cover a $1,000 emergency, according to a study from Bankrate? If something unexpected comes up and you don't have the cash on hand, you could be in for a world of financial hurt. And if you already have investments in place, you might have to sell them at the worst possible time. This is why the first step to building wealth is to build up a small cash balance that is easily accessible. Now, the goal for this account isn't to make money. It's simply to be able to handle an unexpected emergency without derailing your overall financial plan. So, how much should you save? Well, that depends on you, but a good guideline is to look at the deductibles on your insurance policy. So I recommend looking at all of your insurance deductibles and choosing the highest one as your starting number. Now, for example, the average health insurance deductible in 2024 is $1,700. The average auto insurance deductible is $500, and the average home insurance deductible is $500. So in this example, I would recommend going with $1,763 as your starter emergency fund. Step number 2 is to contribute to your 401k up to the employer match. 98% of U.S. companies that offer a 401k also offer a match. Now, a 401k match is when the employer adds extra money to your 401k to incentivize workers to contribute. This is essentially free money, and it's imperative that you take advantage of this benefit if you have access to it. Now, the exact details of your 401k match will vary from company to company, but the average employer 401k match in America in 2024 was 4.6%. So a common matching formula that many companies use is a 50% match on up to 6% of contributions. So that means on an average U.S. salary of $77,600, the employer match is worth $3,571 in extra money. This is why it's imperative that you contribute enough money to your 401k to take full advantage of the math. If you're not doing it, it's kind of like saying no to free money. That brings us to step number 3, which is to start paying down your high interest debt. The average debt in America is $104,000 when you include mortgages, auto loans, student loans, and credit cards, according to Experian. And sadly, 50% of Americans carry a credit card balance from month to month. Carrying high interest debt makes it impossible to get ahead financially because that's putting compound interest against you instead of working for you. This is why the third step is to eliminate all of your high interest debt. Now, to do so, start by making a spreadsheet of all of the debts that you owe. So when it comes to this step, I'm only talking about paying down debt that has an interest rate above 7%. So let's break down the 2 most popular methods for paying down debt aggressively. So method number 1 is called the snowball method. And this is when you pay the smallest debt first, regardless of interest rate. Now, this method is championed by Dave Ramsey, and he loves it because it gives you quick wins, which keeps your motivation for paying down debt high. Now, the net effect of the snowball method is that you end up paying more money to interest because you're starting with your smallest debt first, and that makes your payoff time longer. However, I'm inclined to believe with Dave Ramsey here that this is the optimal way to go because keeping your motivation high is key to actually getting the debt paid off. The second method of paying off your debt is called the avalanche method, and this is when you start with the highest interest rate debt first. Now, the effect of this is that you have lower overall interest expense by choosing this method. However, you get off to a slower start, so many people fail to actually achieve their debt reduction goals because they aren't motivated the entire way. Now, with the avalanche method, you pay less in total debt, and the total payoff time is shorter. So it does have some big advantages. In truth, I don't really care which method you choose to pay off your debt, the snowball or avalanche method. I just care that you actually pay it off. Now that all of our high interest debt is gone, it's time to focus on building out a full emergency fund. Now, a full emergency fund is designed to protect you from a big financial emergency, such as a death in the family or the sudden loss of a job. Yet again, the goal here isn't to make money from this account, it's to give yourself a financial buffer to handle a huge financial shock. Now, the conventional conventional wisdom for emergency fund is to keep 3 to 6 months of expenses in cash on hand, but I think there's actually a better way to think about it. My preferred method for calculating how much an emergency fund you need is to use this table. Once we start with 3 months of fixed costs, we then ask ourselves an important question. Do you have dependents or not? If you do have dependents, you should add 3 months to your emergency fund size. If you don't have any dependents, then there's no need to add any months. The next question I ask is, how easy would it be for you to get another job should you lose it? And that depends on the dynamics of your industry. If you work in an industry that's dying, is very cyclical, or it would take you quite a bit of time to get another job, I think it makes sense to add another 3 months to your emergency fund. If you're in an industry that's dying but does not have cyclical needs, you might need only to add 1 month to your emergency fund. It's a similar story if you work in an industry that is growing but has some cyclicality to it. And if you work in an industry that is growing, non-cyclical, and you think it would be very easy for you to get another job, I don't think you need to add any months for your industry. Final question I ask is, how many sources of income do you have coming into your household? If you just have one source of income, if you are the sole breadwinner, I think you need to be even more conservative and add another 3 months to your emergency fund target. If you have 2 sizable sources of income, that gives you some diversification, and you should probably only add 1 more month to your emergency fund size. And then finally, if you have 3 or more sources of income, the loss of 1 source of income would not be detrimental, so you don't have to add any additional income to your emergency fund. So using myself as an example, if I was to go through this, I should start with 3 months of fixed expenses. I do have dependents, so I should add 3 months on top of that. I work in a growing non-cyclical industry, and I think it would be easy for me to get another job. And then I also have 3+ sources of income coming into my life, so I think I should add 0 months from there. So if I add 3 plus 3 plus 0 plus 0, my target for emergency fund would be 6 months of my personal family fixed costs. That brings us to step number 5, which is to take advantage of a health savings account, also called an HSA. Now, if you're unfamiliar, a health savings account is a triple tax advantage savings account for individuals that have a high deductible health plan. Now, HSAs allow you to contribute pre-tax money. That money then grows tax-free, and you can withdraw it tax-free to pay for qualified medical expenses. The funds can be invested, and they can be used for healthcare costs both now and in the future. That makes HSAs one of the best accounts that you could possibly put money into if you qualify for it. Now, the flip side, not everybody can qualify to open a HSA. You need to have a high deductible health plan to be able to access one. There are contribution limits if you do have access to an HSA. In 2024, that was $3,800 for an individual and $7,700 for a family. The best reason to open an HSA is because of the triple tax benefit, and the funds do roll over each year. Moreover, you can actually invest the money that you put into an HSA, so you don't just have to keep it in cash. These benefits make an HSA a fantastic account to open if you have access to one. That brings us to step number 6 for the optimal order of investing, which is to put money into a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA. Now, contrary to popular belief, IRA actually stands for Individual Retirement Arrangement, not Individual Retirement Account. Semantics aside, these are wonderful accounts to open and put money into to pay for retirement. Now, there are some differences between a traditional IRA and Roth IRA that are worth noting. In 2024, you can put the same amount of money into both of these accounts, $6,500 as an individual, but if you're over age 50, this number gets bumped up to $7,500. The difference between a traditional IRA and the Roth IRA are the tax treatments. With a traditional IRA, you're making pre-tax contributions, which lowers your taxable income this year. If you're putting money into a Roth IRA, you're making those contributions with post-tax dollars, meaning there's no immediate tax benefit. Now, when you're pulling money out of these accounts, you do get taxed on a traditional IRA as ordinary income. However, with the Roth, withdrawals are tax-free so long as they are qualified. Another difference between the two is early withdrawal penalties. For a traditional IRA, you pay a 10% penalty if you're trying to access your money before 59.5, unless you meet certain exceptions. With a Roth IRA, you can pull out your contributions at any time tax-free, but there is a 10% penalty if you try and access the gains on your accounts before age 59.5. Unless you meet certain exceptions. There are some other subtle differences between a traditional IRA and Roth IRA that are worth noting. For example, a traditional IRA has required minimum distributions, where there are none with a Roth IRA. There are also income limits, where high income earners might not qualify qualify for a Roth IRA, whereas they would qualify for a traditional IRA. So overall, the traditional IRA has tax benefits now, whereas a Roth IRA has tax benefits in the future. So how should you choose which one is right for you? Well, as a general statement, if you're younger and have lower income, you should favor contributing to a Roth IRA. If you're older or have a higher income, you should favor contributing to an IRA. Now, while a 401k is opened up through your employer at work, an IRA or Roth IRA, you actually have to open up on your own. And to do so, you're going to need to have access to a brokerage account. Now, a broker is simply a company that allows you to buy or sell investments. You tell the broker what you want, and they handle the buying and selling for you. Now, if you don't have a broker, there's a few things you need to keep in mind before you open one. The first thing to look at is fees. You want to make sure that your broker has no commissions, no account fees, and no hidden costs. Second, you want to make sure that the interest rate that you earn on the cash kept in your brokerage account is high and competitive. A third, you want to make sure that the broker has access to stocks, bonds, cryptos, ETF, funds, and options. You want to make sure that the platform is easy to use and has very low account minimums. I'm a stickler for making sure the brokerage has very high security standards and is based in the United States. And I also think you should make sure it has fast, responsive, and knowledgeable customer service. Now, this is a pretty high bar for any brokerage firm to meet, but thankfully there is a brokerage firm that meets every single one of these criteria. And that just so happens to be the sponsor of today's video, which is public.com. When I have cash I'm not ready to invest, or I'm saving for a larger purchase, I like to keep it in a high-yield cash account that pays me with interest to wait until I'm ready. That's why I'm thrilled to partner with Public.com on this video. Public.com is a platform where you can open a high-yield cash account, invest in stocks, ETFs, and bonds all in one place. With Public.com's high-yield cash account, you can earn an impressive 4.6% APY on your cash. That rate is 10 times higher than the average savings account. Plus, with Public.com, there are no subscription fees, no account maintenance fees, no balance fees, and there are no limits on how much you can earn. And you can transfer, withdraw, or invest your cash at any time, whenever you'd like. If you want to put your idle cash to work, open up a high-yield cash account on Public.com by visiting public.com/Brian or by clicking the link in the video description. Now that we've opened our IRA, it's time to move on to step 7, which is to pay down all non-mortgage debt. This step is all about punching all of your debt in the face except for your mortgage. So this includes things like home equity lines of credit, auto loans, credit card debt, student loans, and more. And this time we're going to be paying down debt even if the interest rate is below 7%, with the only exception being your mortgage. Now again, there are two choices for the optimal way to pay down your debt. There is the snowball method and there's the avalanche method. Which method you choose to use, I don't really care about, just so long as you pay off your low interest debt. That brings us to optimal step number 8, which is to open and contribute to a taxable brokerage account. A brokerage account is a place where you can make investments, but there are no tax advantages at all to doing so. Now, while there are no tax advantages to open a brokerage account, one big advantage is that there's no contribution limits at all. In addition to that, there's no early withdrawal penalties, no required minimum distributions, and no income limits for contributing to them. So if you still have extra capital after steps 1 through 7, put as much money as you can into your brokerage account and start making smart investments. Now that brings us to optimal step number 9. If you have kids and want to help them pay for college, it's time to start thinking about that. A very common way to save for college is with a 529 plan. Now you might be wondering, why is this step all the way at the end? And the reason is, just like when you're on an airplane and there's an emergency, you want to make sure that your mask is on before you worry about your kids. The same is true for helping them pay for college. Kids can have access to financial assistance, but there is no such financial assistance for paying for retirement, which is why you have to care about your own personal finances first before you start worrying about your kids. Now, if you do decide to help pay for your kids' college, you do have a couple of different choices. The first is to use a 529 plan, which are used to pay for educational expenses. There are some tax benefits to contributing to a 529 plan, so long as you use them for qualified education expenses. Another choice is the UGMA or UTMA. Now, going this method has far less restrictions on what the money can be used for, but there are more restrictions on how much money you can give to your kids directly. Final choice is with something called a Coverdale account. These also pay for educational expenses, and they can be a great choice. The contribution limits are far lower at just $2,000 per year per child. Which one you choose to use is completely up to you and your situation, but if you are going to be paying for your kids' college, now is the time to start thinking about it. Once we have that set up and done, it's finally time to start thinking about paying off our mortgage. Now, there are many people that think that paying off your mortgage is a bad financial move, given that the interest rates on your mortgage are so low, and I understand that counter argument completely. However, put me firmly in the camp of saying that paying off your mortgage early is a good idea, regardless of the interest rate, simply because if you can do so, you permanently lower one of your largest fixed monthly expenses. And the optionality that brings to you in the future as being a debt-free homeowner, to me, is well worth the suboptimal math for doing so. After all, never forget that the purpose of money is to live a better life, and put me in the camp that says paying off your mortgage early helps you to live a better life, regardless of what the math actually says. So there you have it. There are the 10 steps for optimally investing your money in 2025. Now, I just threw a whole bunch of information at you, so if you want a free infographic that has those 10 steps in order, simply visit longtermmindset.co/optimal or click the link in the video description and I'll send you a free copy of that infographic. Well, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it the thumbs up. It does help us out on YouTube. And if you want to keep learning from here, I highly recommend you watch this video next.